Well, in the Gladstone region, we're absolutely spoilt for options. Me personally, I've got a young family, so we like to hang out in parks on the weekend, which there's that many. We like to mix it up and really keep it exciting for the young kids, which they love. Me personally, I'm into fitness, lots of running trails, lots of walking trails. I love mountain biking, and if you like mountain biking, Gladstone's one of the best regions. What makes me proud to work for Gladstone Regional Council is the fact that we get to make a difference every day. The fact that when you see kids having parties on the weekends at parks, knowing the work that you did during the week has resulted in them having a really good time. My name is Ryan Haney. I'm a Technical Officer for the Gladstone Regional Council.
Well, good morning again. The time being 10:30, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for Tuesday the 16th of July. For those watching online, we've just adopted our 2024-2025 budget, which is why the meeting is starting a little bit later this morning. There's no apologies this morning, councillors. We're all present, so I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is messages of condolence. Do we have any messages of condolence? No messages of condolence. The next item on the agenda is prior notifications of conflicts of interest. I have a prior notification of conflict of interest that I'd like to declare in item 4.7, annual insurance renewal. I, Mayor Matt Burnett, declare I have a prescribed conflict of interest in agenda item G 4.7, annual insurance renewals, as I'm a director and acting president of the Local Government Association of Queensland, and the agenda item considers a contract between Council and LGAQ's subsidiary, Local Government Mutual Scheme. As a result of the prescribed conflict of interest, I will not participate in the decision, and I'll leave the room for the agenda item and hand over to the Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Any further conflicts of interest? No, we'll move to the next item, which is the Mayor's statement before we go to our deputation this morning. And over the last couple of weeks, of course, we've had the National General Assembly of Local Government in Canberra, and I'd like to thank the councillors and staff for attending that event. Obviously, it's where all 537 councils have an opportunity to come together, and we had over 1,200 delegates attend the National General Assembly and the Australian Councils of Local Government, which has returned for the second time, where the Australian Government basically sit on the stage at the Canberra Centre and and take questions from our local councillors across the country of issues that are important to them. But our NGA, again, a very successful event, and as I said, 1,200 delegates, and it was good to see that our motions were all carried. Thank you, Councillor McClintock, who was our delegate, and there was a few other motions that we didn't necessarily support that may have got through, but that's the joy of being part of a big local government family across the nation. Also celebrated NAIDOC Week. We've had our flag raising ceremony and a lot of other services and activities throughout NAIDOC Week. Thank you to Kylie and your team for everything you do in terms of organising that. Minister Bowen visited the Gladstone region on Friday, the 12th of July. Councillor Goodluck was able to attend that event, as the Deputy Mayor was in the NAIDOC March. Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. No doubt might be able to mention more about that in general business, but obviously I think there was some funding announced for the Boyne smelter, which is fantastic to see our Rio Tinto businesses transitioning to net zero and being supported by the federal government in terms of funding back to their local businesses. The biggest event at the Tondoon Botanic Gardens, of course, is Luminous, and on Friday night we saw 13,000 people and 15,000 people through the gates, and Sunday night, of course, was our reduced capacity event, but we had close to 30,000 people attend our Luminous over the 3-day event. Kylie, you might need to make it 4 days next year. Just saying, just put it out there. There's been a lot of feedback that the community would like to see it run over more nights so that people can enjoy the effort our council team put in, because your team do an amazing job putting that all together, and it seems a shame that we only have it for 3 nights. So I think that's something we need to consider for next year for Luminous. As National Tree Day is coming up on 28th of July, the communities and schools registration closes on the 19th of July. Of course, our team have organised a tree planting, which is Palm Drive in Gladstone. So if you want to get involved in our council organised community event, it's happening there on Palm Drive in Gladstone. Make sure you contact the team to get involved. The Boyne Valley 50 is this weekend. That is a running event, the first time. Councillor McClintock is doing the 25Ks, and I'm going to be slowly behind him, running at 12 kilometres, and I think I can probably manage about 5, and we'll see how we go. But it's great to see that event happening in the Boyne Valley, and all the events that have happened since the opening of the Boyne Inland Rail Trail. Boyne Burnett Inland Rail Trail. Our 2025 apprenticeship and traineeship applications close on Friday, Friday the 19th of July. That's this Friday. So if anyone you know is wanting to apply for our apprenticeship or traineeships for 2025, they have until the 19th of July to apply for that. And our 2025 Santos GL&G Mayor's Charity Ball beneficiaries are now open. So if you'd like to nominate your organisation or group to be one of the beneficiaries of the 2025 Santos GL&G Mayor's Charity Ball, they close on the 30th of August. Contact Council or visit our GRC website for more information. And of course, Zonta will be one of those beneficiaries, and we'll usually have 2 other local beneficiaries as well. Last year it was the Animal Rescue and the Coin Island Turtle Rehabilitation Centre. Thank you, councillors. That's the Mayor's statement. I'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the 2nd of July 2024, G2.1. Mover for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Patrick, and seconded Councillor Wagner. Oh, sorry, not Wagner. Councillor Davis. Thank you, Karen. I was looking at...
everywhere.
You are. You're over there and there. Councillor Davis. Any questions? Put the motion. All in favour. That's carried. All right, now we have a deputation from Chappy House Co. and we've got our chaplain Todd and T who are going to provide a deputation for us this morning. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. First of all, let me just say that thank you so much, Mayor and councillors, for having us here today, and thank you for taking the positions of councillors and Mayor. Your courage to stand up and be part of this community. It takes a lot of courage, and just thank you for showing up is the big thing, and the community thanks you. My name's Todd Schultz. This is to my right is my wife, Tala Fanana Schultz. We're part of an new organization called Chappy House. We're going to right now just open with a video and start what we're about.
At Agnes Water last month when his heart stopped. Schultz was pulling into his work site at Agnes Water last month when his heart stopped working. Miraculously, his car...
Yeah, awesome.
his work site at Agnes Water last month when his heart stopped working. Miraculously, his car came safely to a stop, and when his colleagues realised what was happening, they sprang into action and called 000.
He looks like he's out cold behind the steering wheel, and there's two blokes working on him trying to get him to breathe again.
Emergency services arrived within 4 minutes of the call. Todd was soon flown to Bundaberg Hospital where he regained consciousness.
First thing I was looking for was my wife, to see if my wife was, like, didn't know where I was at.
Tala Schultz was relieved to see her husband was okay. She says she's grateful there was a defibrillator nearby.
Being in a remote rural community, it's really important to understand where the defibs are.
Todd and Tala decided their Thanksgiving celebration this year would be a feast for life.
Basically, it was a big feast that we had to say thank you to everybody.
I think the crews were really grateful that they could be reunited with the patient in this case. I think it really helped with the ambulance crews and other emergency services that helped on the day.
The ambulance service is encouraging everyone to learn CPR.
I think CPR awareness is really important. I think having the knowledge to be able to provide CPR really buys that time to be able to improve patient outcomes.
Bianca Carboni, 7 News.
Well, thank God for ambulance services, being able to come back alive. And just to give you kind of our background, so my background is in the area of psychology, business. My wife's background, Tala's background, is in community services. We've been involved with the police, with the councils over the years, with Ipswich, and I've been in this country about 35 years. So just don't, the accent that I have, hopefully you can understand everything I'm saying. I'm originally from San Francisco. Make a long story short, I was a street kid. grew up on the streets in San Francisco, got saved by obviously our Heavenly Father, the Lord above, and also got involved with local people who came into my life and got me involved with gridiron, and I became a college athlete. And then ended up going into a pros for a short stint, and then came to Australia to coach American football and get involved with youth and kids and people here. When I had this incident that happened, the long story short with this is that I was basically wanting to semi-retire. Agnes Water was the place to be. I ended up meeting a fellow by the name of Paul Cohen, who was a chaplain, who saw this interview that was done. Basically asked me if I wanted to become a chaplain. I said there's no way I want to become a chaplain. It was not my cup of tea. And I was kind of lost where I was going to go. The interesting thing about it is when I passed away, and I'll make a very long story short, I had my near-death experience, and I had my experience with our Father above. And the interesting thing about it is that God said to me that, Todd, you need to go back and finish what you started. And to make that long story short, we ended up becoming a chaplain. And every day since I made that commitment 2 years ago, down in Agnes Water, we have been having people come to me from that after the day after or the week after this incident happened for help and assistance. Since then, I've been a team leader with Chaplain Watch, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with here in Gladstone area. We've been keeping the streets safe and working with the people and the police and the ambulances in the precinct here in the area. And during that time, we've also simultaneously been having Chappy House, which we've been helping people in the local community from Agnes Water all the way down to Baffle Creek and Rosedale. And that's what Chappy House has basically become, was born out of. So what we're about now and what's happened through all this assistance as a chaplain, what we found is that there's a heck of a lot of people in need, and I don't need to tell you guys that because you hear it every day. So we're on the ground doing this. We're the ones without the red tape that are going up to people's homes saying, hey, how are you? And connecting them to community agency. What we found from this situation was that there's a huge gap between community agencies and the people that are in their homes and that are in need. And what we found was that by being with these people where they're at and referring them to community agencies and walking them through hand by hand is getting them the adequate help. We're seeing more and more people taking their lives through suicide, going through mental health, depression in these isolated areas in the community. We're finding that community services that are located up here in Gladstone aren't accessing these people that are down in the Agnes Water region, in Baffle Creek region, and Lowmead region, just because of their overload. And so what we're trying to do is make that connection happen. Going back to what our vision is, we're basically about being where finding a thriving community where people are known, loved, and valued. That's really what our motto is about. Because what we find is that people out in this community are not known, they're not feeling the love at the moment, and they're definitely not feeling valued. And we're trying to make that physical connection with them as chaplaincy and as an organization called Chappy House. Our mission is basically we walk alongside all people, no matter what denomination they're from, offering connection and referral support right here and right now. So we're real. We're not just talking about it. We've actually are going out and doing it. We've been doing it now for 2 years. The funding comes from our pockets. So we haven't been relying on council. We haven't been relying on local agencies. We haven't been relying on local businesses. We just thought this is what needed to be happen. And after 2 years now, what we're finding and what the cases have shown is that we need help and support. And that's why we're here too. We believe that and I'm going to now introduce Tala, my wife, into the next slide because she'll take it from here.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. So I'm T. Essentially Chappy House, and it was funny because we met with Councillor Natalia. She said, but what do you exactly do? And we basically said, well, we're bringing neighbourly love back. So when you think about, and we met Frank there, back in the day you would reach over and hand over some sugar or pass over some eggs or mow past your line across to your neighbour's line. The neighbourly love is probably what we're trying to empower. There's a lot of evidence to say that social isolation is real and the effects of that are real. It impacts on not only people's physical health but also mental, emotional health. But then the ripple effect around that is complacency, complaining, nagging, whinging, calling up the council saying, oh, I've got this pothole happening and all of this sort of stuff. But we're about empowering people, building resilience, getting people to take responsibility and not rely on the council, state or federal. Those structures are in place to support us rather than to babysit us. So that's our position, and we're about supporting people to realise that they can take back ownership and power in their own lives. We do come from a Christian faith place, but we're excited about the whole neighbourly love, bringing that back, because that costs nothing. For me to help people or them to help me or to check in on old mate next door that we haven't seen for 3 weeks is really simple. So that's probably all I wanted to say, other than that there's a lot of statistics around social isolation and the impact. But proactively, it saves hundreds of thousands of dollars when you offer a bowl of sugar over the fence or, just check in on someone. It can save police intervention, it can save council going out, it can save a whole lot of hurt in people's lives. Thank you.
So at the last couple of years, what's been happening is because we've just taken the initiative to do this, what we've gained is the respect of the police, the ambulance, the fireys, community services. One person, when we did it, I'm sure you're aware of an organization called Impact. One of the nurses stood up and said to me, he goes, on what authority do you guys have in doing this? Because obviously we're making their workload more because I'm bringing people in that they usually wouldn't access, So they're like, oh, where are these people coming from? And I said, well, the authority that we go from, number one, is God. Number one, that's who's given me authority as a community member. But number two, if not me, then who? If not us, then who is going to go out there and help these people if nobody knows what's going on? And that's where I came from. And they just said, oh. They said, well, what about the police? Well, the police don't want to know a lot of these people. They don't want to know because it's too hard for them to go out and see an 80-year-old lady to help her with her shopping that's calling them up in the rural area, and she has nobody else to call. So we have to make that connection. Come to find out she has dementia. Come to find out that we had to connect her with a daughter in Sydney, as opposed to a man who didn't make that connection, who took his life and burned his house down, 3 months before that. And so this type of thing is what we're about, and it's chaplaincy in its real sense. It's getting beyond, we all hear about in churches, we all hear about what mercy and grace is, but it's about getting out and doing and taking responsibility. Thank you. Taking that responsibility on ourselves rather than blaming and looking at the councillors or the mayor to say that's your responsibility to do this. We're the community wanting to do this. We're the ones that want to be a part of this, but we need assistance now because it's getting bigger than what we are. It's just, we've now got 45 volunteers, and you know how hard it is to find volunteers who have now come to me and said, and these are people without the church, with non-Christians, who just want to be part of this because they see the positive outcomes that are there. So the type of programs that we are currently running, just to get things going, we're doing Billy Tea and Damper, which is a great opportunity for people to just get together, good old Aussie culture to see. And let me tell you, my shoulder now hurts from swinging a Billy Tea without getting burnt. You know what I mean? That's a bit of a hard one. We're also doing, and the next slide is actually Faye. Actually, I just have to make mention. This lady who's helping us here came in to see me yesterday just off the whim to see how Chappy Todd was doing, and she had a stroke in front of me. An ambulance, she would have died. once again, she would have died. I work full-time. I work in an office selling over 50s homes. She came to me, had a massive stroke. We took her down to the doctors. The doctors then had to get her had to get her to the ambulance, and the ambulance called the helicopter, and she got a trip down to Bundaberg, and her life was saved. This is the type of stuff that is happening, guys, every day, and I'm working full-time as well. So you can imagine, Matt, if somebody just came to your office today, I'm dying, and you have to go rush them down to the hospital or do this. I mean, I don't know why it's happening to me. You know, I have no idea. As a matter of fact, I had the church actually, because they're very conservative in the church, as you can appreciate, who was hearing what I was talking about, that every day somebody's been coming to me, who would actually come and sit in my office. For 3 months, they were watching people coming to me who didn't believe me at first when I was telling them the story. And now they've offered and they've gifted us under a peppercorn lease. For $1, we got a 3-year lease to be able to have Chappy House up behind the church at the Agnes Water Baptist Church, which has been fantastic. So people are starting to come to us and starting to see what we're doing. The next slide is this is some of the pictures that you see with the guys. These are some of the boys that just show up and come down for the Billy T. We get people together down by the beach, and we do a bit of a sing-alongs and just to talk to each other. We have a program called Purpose Driven Life, just to help people find, well, what's your purpose in this life that we're living in nowadays? Since COVID, you know, everybody's gone within their tortoise shells. You know, everybody's isolated themselves. So we're trying to get people back out in community, especially in these isolated areas. And it's hard because it's only Tala and myself, and now that we're going to be training 45 new volunteers, we're going to need that assistance to help train them properly. Because not everybody's going to have a psych degree, not everybody's going to have a social work degree, not everybody's going to have a chaplaincy background or chaplaincy education. So we want to be able to be able to get the average person to the point of where they can give their time adequately. We also have on the next one, you see that there's a, what's this? Oh, so we got Big Beats basketball because we're very little to do with the youth. We want to start approaching things to do with the youth. And one of the things somebody said to me, well, what is chaplaincy? What do you do? And I said, well, that's really loitering with intent, good intention. You know what I mean? And that's what we want to do, is loiter with good intention. So what we want to do is put we're going to be developing Big Beats basketball, which is just bringing the kids in with it's a 3-on-3 basketball program or event that happens where we can find fathers and adults who have an intention to want to reach these kids in our area. Brian Curl, I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Brian Curl is. He's a legend from Rosedale. He's a very good friend of mine. He wants to be able to be involved with what we're doing up in this area, and to be able to not only teaching the basketball skills, but using that as a segue for us to be able to approach these kids and be able to intentionally loiter with them and intentionally approach them to see what's going on with their lives. You know, back in the day, the coach used to be, I don't know if when you grew up, that the coach was your mentor. You know, the coach would take you in under your wing. How you going today, mate? And now with all the red tape and regulations, a lot of coaches can't do that. They won't even talk to the kids, you know. We want to bring that back to where the adults, it might be an adult that's not their parent, who can at least talk to them and see where their issues are at. And hopefully that will kind of catch on fire in one suburb to the next. And that's where we're starting with our own backyard. So we want to start with this Discovery Coast region. We want to make an impact. We also understand the importance of stats and all that everybody wants to see. Yep, you talk about that.
Okay, so just with the stats, I'm compiling the stats. I have a very boring public servant background where reporting, monitoring is really critical. It's very important. And so for the last 18, going on 19 months, we have 393 cases. So the nature of those cases are quite diverse. Where Chappy, Todd or myself are happy to discuss it with council if you're interested in where those statistics are coming from and the nature of those. And just going back to Brian Curl is a local, but he's also a national legend. Brisbane Bullets coach, a national Australian basketball Olympian, etc. And he's very supportive of this Chappy House as well.
So the The big thing is too, I got a presentation happening on Thursday. Rotary is actually looking at Tandem Sands and looking at gifting us a barbecue trailer. And with that trailer, one of the things I learned from being with Chaplain Watch is that we want to put a first aid and defibrillator system kit all here like we had in the back of our vehicles. Because what we do know being rural is that the ambulances, the police sometimes can't get there, or the fireys. And so what we want to be able to be is also on that call as well, that when we're out there, we have a defib right here ready to roll. We've got first aid happen if somebody gets injured or something near the beach, or if we're down at Baffle, somebody gets injured, or if we're down at Lowmead, somebody gets injured. We're immediately there when we're doing our chaplain visits. So this is all part of that, and bringing that first aid. And although I know the ambulances are doing their best, it's important that everybody has a first aid opportunity to be able to help somebody in need. So that's all part of our chaplaincy as well. And that's something that we're really appreciative of what the Rotary is going to be doing too. One of the things that and I will bring this up, and I know everybody has their own background with religion and so forth, but one of the things that I did find is that people that are out there where you think you would have a lot of rejection about having prayer for somebody, everybody that I go to said, Todd, can you pray for me? They're not Christian backgrounds. They can be Buddhist, whatever. But what I'm finding is that people just want to be valued and known, and they want to be able to have this speaking over them, over their life, because they're going through so much pain and hurt. And that's what we're finding. Every day I'm finding this. It blows my mind on how it was. 20 years ago, people would have said, oh, tick off, Todd, get that Christian stuff out of here, whatever it might be. But people are actually embracing this now because they're so lonely and broken right now that, it just blows my mind. So it has nothing to do with me. There's a higher God above is really working with these people. And there's people in here whose children or kids or families, I'm sure, who have been on the streets, who've seen us working in Chaplain Watch in itself, who we've been there in their time of need. Because what happens is everybody self-medicates, and they either self-medicate through drugs or through alcohol. So we're trying to be there for them as well. We can't be everywhere, at every place, but we can try, and we can try to be starting somewhere. And like I said with you guys just show up. That's what we're doing now, is we're just showing up. And all we want to be able to do is get the council support behind us to say, hey, continue, Todd, in showing up. And I really don't know, my wife would know more than I would have, and how you can support us. But we need support as much as we get from everybody, and just be there for people. And I want to be able to carry this on for years. I don't want it to be a short-term thing. I don't want it to be a fad thing. I want us to always be there for the people, And that's me. What's that slide? Yep. What's that? Go ahead.
So we're not going to go into this today, but it's the strategic plan that we have, some of the milestones that we have. I'm happy to meet with councillors or officers independently. One of the milestones here is we haven't actually launched. So our official launch is in November, and in October, we are travelling to Washington, D.C. and also Virginia. The chaplaincy programs there are interested in what us Aussies are doing here in Gladstone. They've been really, their ears are pricked, because they're like, why are you doing it, and how is it working, and what's happening, what's your model, what's your framework, etc., etc. To be honest, we actually don't have one, but we've been able to create one on the fly. So sometimes we wait for perfection to happen before we actually implement. But what we've done is we've just flown by the seat of our pants, and it's just come together. But that's probably it. We've got more information, but we probably just don't have the time. We'd love to chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, T. Questions? Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you both for coming in today, and congratulations on what you're doing down there. And that community, I think it's fair to say, would really benefit from having that opportunity to network. And I'm keen to see how this can actually bring more of that community together to make it a more resilient community. There are different organisations and they're all doing a great job, so I'll be keen to see you network with the others and see if you can bring everyone on board, because it is something that I think is needed down there. I love what you're doing. I like the idea that you've got the draft strategic plan there, and I can see that you both have a good background to make an organisation successful. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for that, Councillor.
Councillor McClintock.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I think it's an incredible initiative. I was just speaking with T briefly before during morning tea, and good friends of ours helped me launch the cafe that I own and operate now, and with much of the same heart and dream behind it. So I know this isn't just a whim or an idea that's sort of come out of nowhere, but it is something that's got some foundation and some roots and growth back behind it as well. So yeah, I really commend you guys. I think you're doing some incredible work, obviously, down in that space. And anyone that's going to continue to create community and strengthen community is definitely the type of people we want to support, and the type of people that we want to encourage to continue to dream big and continue to push the boundaries of what's possible in this space. So, yeah, I'm happy to move.
Okay.
Do we receive it? I think this is brilliant. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Councillor.
Move Councillor McClintock that the deputation be received. Seconded Councillor Wagner. Is there further questions? Yes, Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, and thank you for all the fantastic work that you guys are doing. We'll certainly look at how we might be able to support. I did have a question. Do you have a secret damper recipe?
I do, and I get ridiculed because it's expensive, but I make a unbelievable bacon and cheese damper with chives.
And you've got photos there of the Billy T and damper. I've got to ask, I could be way off the mark, but that looks an awful lot like Chris Trevor. Is that Chris Trevor in the photo with the damper?
No, that's Marcus.
That's Marcus.
Marcus,
oh, it's not.
yeah.
Oh. It looks like CT, doesn't it? Marcus looks like CT.
He'd be keen for some damper, there's no doubt about that.
It's the type of place that he would be, though. But no, thank you very much.
Everyone's welcome.
Hope to get there one day. That'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll get our team, I'll accept the mover and seconder before we put the motion. I'll get our team to contact even by email or something with the list of applications for grants that you can apply, Councillor. I can think of one that you would automatically qualify for, but there's others that you could certainly apply for, and that's a way Council might be able to assist. Previously, we have supported a chaplaincy program in the schools. We used to, I think, give 50,000, maybe even up to 150,000 for every school chaplain in the Gladstone region. And I remember it was difficult because Rosedale and Agnes Water were considered Bundaberg or Wide Bay, and we were funding the Central Queensland schools. We made sure we funded every school with their chaplains that had a chaplain, of course. We have a fantastic chaplaincy program in our main street, which looks after our 18 to 25-year-olds at night time. I fully support what you're doing. It's fantastic, and I will get the team to send you an email. No doubt we've got your contact details on what grants are available at Council and how we may be able to assist.
That's great. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Move Councillor McClintock, second, and Councillor Wagner that the deputation be received. All in favour? Thank you, and it's carried. Thank you. It gets exciting from here on in. Oh, there's a couple on there. Thank you. Okay. It does if you're watching, Chris. Okay, thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is our officers' reports, G4.1, which is the LGAQ motions and attendance for 2024. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes, and Lika, our Acting Manager of Strategy and Improvement. Thank you.
Morning, Mayor and councillors. This item is for you to consider a couple of motions that have been put forward by our Waste Working Group across Council for consideration at the annual LGAQ conference. Those two motions are basically calls to actions for the state, particularly with respect to just some clarification on how we implement FOGO. So that's, you know, food organics and green and garden organics, and looking at some of those questions about those end markets, PFAS data, and how we go about implementing those services from a cost perspective as well, and how we support those, as well as trying to get a long-term answer with respect to recycling and processing solutions across CQ. So it's basically a submission of those two motions. Further, the report looks to seek the endorsement of 2 councillors to attend the conference. We know the Mayor's attending in his role with LGAQ, but there's a provision there for 2 councillors to attend. We will need someone to speak to the motions though too, and one of the delegates will be required to do that. But I'll hand over to councillors for their consideration, and Lika will absolutely help me out, no doubt, if you have questions.
No worries. Well, to confirm, it's 2 delegates to attend, and as there's a number of councillors that are wanting to attend as observers as well. Do we need to authorise the councillors as observers, or is it covered in our policy? So just we need to identify the 2 delegates, keeping in mind that you're all welcome to attend as observers, and I recommend that as many of you attend as possible, because particularly we have 5 new councillors, and I think it's very valuable for you to attend. But I would like to recommend that the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Goodluck be delegates, if you're happy to do that. Councillor Goodluck will most likely speak to the motions, but you're welcome to as well. Well, you'll need a mover. You need a mover and a seconder for our motion. So, but Councillor Churchill, happy to move. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Holzheimer. Any further discussion? Motion. All in favour? What did, you don't get to decide. You're going to be the speaker.
I was just going to say that there's no possible way the deputy could stop me talking to the motions.
Case in
you
point.
can talk to the motions as well.
Well, I've done that before. Yes, thank you. Put the motion again. All in favour? And the motion is carried. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lika. The next item on the agenda is G4.3. Thank you, Mark, as well. Our Community Investment Program Elevator Fund application. I'll hand over to the General Manager. What did I do? You haven't done 4.2. No, I haven't either. Sorry. I ticked 4.2. Consideration request for extended currency period, DA 755212, workers' accommodation, 1,408 rooms at 45 and 101 Calliope River Road. Sorry, Helen. I'll hand back over to the the Manager of Development Services, Helen Robertson. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Today we have a report in front of you in relation to a site at 101 and 45 Calliope River Road, River Ranch, on a rural parcel of land. The applicant seeks to extend the currency period for a further period of 10 years up until the 2nd of May 2034. The original approval was granted under the Calliope Shire Planning Scheme via a court order in 2015. In considering the request, Development Services had regard to the requirements of the currency extension under the Planning Act, as per the table set out in your report. If lodged today, this application would be impact assessable under the current scheme, with specific assessment benchmarks set by the Council for Workers' Accommodation. The application would be impact assessable, affording the community rights for input in the assessment process. Consideration against Council strategic documents has also been undertaken, including the current planning scheme, the Social Infrastructure Strategic Plan, the Infrastructure Services and Impact Model that's included in there, the Housing Action Plan, and the material informing the planning scheme review process. A summary of those findings are included in the assessment of this report before you today, with a recommendation to refuse the request to extend the currency period for 10 years up until the 2nd of May 2034. I have Acting Principal Planning Lead Nick Cooper online, and we're happy to take any questions you have.
Thanks, Helen. Manager, questions to the Manager, please. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Mayor. Thanks very much, Helen, and for the team. Very comprehensive report, but I just can't agree with your recommendation at this stage. But going forward, I'd like to just get a couple of points of clarification, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Very mindful of what's happening out there in the marketplace at the moment with accommodation needs. In actual fact, reading through the agenda a couple of times, to read through it again to try to get an understanding of the principle or the basis for refusal, because you've indicated in your report if the proponents had applied for it today, it would be rejected.
It would be impact assessable under the current scheme.
It would be impact assessable, so therefore it goes back out for community consultation.
Correct.
But then that could be challenged appropriately in the Planning and Environment Court.
It could.
Okay. I went one step further and I was trying to understand the accommodation demand at the moment, and then I'll go one step further and say that we have an accommodation crisis based on current evidence that I have. But again, I'm sure my colleagues have got questions to ask. My question to you is twofold, is that trying to understand in the original currency period was for a 10-year.
Yep.
But you've made reference in your report, and I just allude to that one there, the operation of the use must cease in accordance with the following if paragraph D does not apply, and maybe I'd just like to get an understanding, 20 years from the commencement of the approved use.
Yeah. So there's two...
I feel conflicted that we've got a 10-year approval, but there's a 20-year entitlement.
So there's two different elements. The currency refers to the currency of the approval in place before it becomes operational. The condition is in regard to the operation of the facility once it's commenced. So the currency of the development approval is what we're talking today because the operation of this facility hasn't commenced.
Right.
The condition relates to the ongoing operation of the facility once it's commenced.
Right.
So it would mean that from the time the development occurred and commenced, it would have a 20-year lifespan. That's what that condition talks about.
Okay then. All right. Yeah.
Like the MAC camp.
Beg your pardon, sorry?
The original MAC camp in Calliope had to...
The time frame was different, but yes, yeah.
It was allowed to operate, but then was closed, had to
it needed
close,
to be, yeah.
so it could be turned into residential development.
Yeah, decommissioned.
So it was forced to close?
Yep.
All right, okay then. And I'd just like to get an understanding if there's any sort of grandfather policy or anything in the past for that allows for these type of facilities to be built in areas of demand when crises arrive for accommodation demands. Now, again, we're talking in two different circumstances here. We're talking what was the environment 10 years ago, and then during those 10 years, and now we seem to be back where we're going to with economic development and growth and hydrogen and green energy and throw everything else in there as well. Is there no other, is there other, I'm trying to understand if there was a grandfather or a precedence established outside the parameters of this proponent that you're aware of?
I'm not quite sure.
What the intent of my question?
Yeah, I'm just not quite sure what kind of example do you mean? Do you mean where the government is...
Where they approved camps on islands?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just trying to understand when there's a need or there's a demand, albeit a crisis for accommodation demand, is there ways outside parameters where a precedent has been established to ensure that there is a facility to be able to provide accommodation?
Probably.
Otherwise, what will happen appropriately as a result of this is that we may see a huge amount of leakage, and that leakage could very well be north, south, east, or maybe not east, but and or west.
Probably not within the realms of control of a local government. I guess the state and the minister, they have powers under the planning legislation to do a variety of things. So my answer to your question would be not within the realms of local government.
Not within the realms of local government. Okay, that's what I needed to hear. Thank you for that. Happy to hear what the rest of my colleagues have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Further questions to Helen, please. Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I understand the reasoning for the recommendation, and I know that even in our, in the planning scheme, in our economic transition roadmap, we talk about trying to do things differently and better for the future of our community, trying to encourage proponents of these major industrial projects to address long-term housing needs. And I think everyone would be in agreement with that, but I also think if we look at the Stanwell project, upwards of 2,000 workers through the construction period, European Energy, many of these projects are either still in the development application phase, I think there's about 6 other potential hydrogen projects. There's 2 pumped hydro projects in the early planning phases. Just the other month there was a potential green steel project. So very early days for lots of these projects, and even if only half of them were to make it through to, you know, that construction phase, I do think that there's going to be a shortfall in that workers' accommodation. And so there's a fine line between what we, you know, and trying to ensure that we don't have those great impacts to our community, and trying to ensure that we can do things better and address those long-term housing needs. And I think absolutely every single day that the Mayor and every councillor and our officers, our CEO, our planning department is discussing these projects with these proponents, I think that's at the front of our mind and the very top level of discussion points. And I know it is for the proponents as well. So it's not that we can't continue to have those discussions, but I do think that in the event, and I'm very optimistic about the possibilities, and I'm very optimistic about the future that the Gladstone region has with all of these potential projects. I'm confident that we'll see many great things for this community as far as future industries developed here in the next decade. And I do think, because of that, I agree with Councillor Churchill that we're possibly going to need this approval to be extended for 10 years. That will also that will give us the ability to be able to accommodate that construction workforce if we need it. And it's also an important point that Councillor Churchill made, reinforced by yourself, Helen, that this is a temporary accommodation facility. It will not be a permanent facility. It will be there to be used if and when needed, and then when the time comes to that it's no longer needed, it will be deconstructed after that time period. So I'm happy to... you didn't move a recommendation, did you, Councillor Churchill?
I was keen to, Councillor Goodluck, but at the same time endorsing your comments, but I was interested to hear what my other colleagues had to say based on perhaps those that are close in the area of some statistics and some statistical data in relation to, and we're not just, and I understand where you're coming from, we're talking about housing, but I'm talking about accommodation. That's at all different levels of accommodation, that the demand, albeit I've stepped one step further to go to the crisis level, and you know, and I believe it's going to become even further exacerbated based on what we know and what we don't know. But yeah, no, not at this stage, Councillor.
Well, I'm happy to leave it for now, Mr Mayor. But the other thing that is a concern to me as well is that, you know, the rental market is incredibly tight at the moment. There's lots of people hurting out there who can't find rentals. And even for myself, looking at the property market, the property market is very tight as well. Houses are going quicker than anything I've seen, to be honest, since the LNG construction boom, and that there doesn't seem to be a light at the end of that tunnel. So I do think we have to be realistic around the types of initiatives we can put into play to address those housing needs for our community in the short term. But this might be one of them.
Thank you. I have a few councillors.
Can I just make a quick comment back in response? I agree with you, Councillor Goodluck, but I think what we need to do is we need to hear from our colleagues, because what Helen's actually indicated to me today is that not in local government land. I think sometimes we need to take some leadership and do what's best within our community rather than waiting to determine whether another tier of government is going to determine for or against what's going to be best for the future of Gladstone and the region and making Gladstone great again. Thank you.
You've got a few councillors lining up. Councillor McClintock, Councillor Wagner, and then Councillor Holzheimer.
Yeah, thank you. Mr Mayor, you make reference here, and you kind of, the report does have some information, but it says on page 14, down near the bottom there, additional rooms accommodation will be required during peak periods. No, that's not the right bit I was looking for, the other bit. Sorry. middle of 13. The proposed development would now also be subject to additional benchmark requirements. Could you just, I've got a couple of questions, but my first one was just give me maybe a brief understanding of what those additional benchmarks would be. There's a little bit of info there, but not super clear what are we missing or what's changed in the landscape, like we were just discussing in the last 10 years, that would be a concern that we'd need to benchmark against.
Nick, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, thanks, Hal. So thanks for the question. The planning scheme today, or the Gladstone Regional Planning Scheme, has additional benchmarks which were developed as part of the process of considering past constraints with the population that happened with the LNG project. So a new policy was developed in the planning scheme, which is the appropriate benchmarks for the workforce accommodation used today. So that wasn't previously part of the Calliope Shire planning scheme. And so there's additional considerations under the current planning scheme that a development application lodged today would have to comply with. Well, I could go into the specifics of it if you want me to share the screen or something. I could bring up the benchmark.
I don't need a 10-minute overview, but just maybe a couple of the dot points of what that actually tangibly looks like, just so we can get a picture of what are we at risk of, I guess, of not checking against if we don't go through this process again or don't force them to go back through this process again.
Yeah. Thank you. The benchmark certainly doesn't encourage this type of development to occur in a rural zone. It seeks to ensure that this type of development is integrated into current communities within sort of residential zone properties, so that the legacy that's left behind can be utilised for future uses once the workforce accommodation is no longer needed. So rather than having these types of developments sit on the peripheral of communities, it's the benchmark sort of guides us towards putting these types of uses more intrinsically integrated into current communities. And I guess that's the main sort of consideration or difference between the two planning schemes.
Thank you very much. Gives a little bit more insight into that side of things. I think as you read through the report here, it talks a lot about, it's very thorough, thank you, but gave a picture, I guess, of the risk that I could see, or that I kind of interpreted from it, of if we approve this or take this forward, that it would perhaps hold back developers from doing things closer to town and doing things in more rewarding spaces for community, as you mentioned there. I think probably that, in my understanding, is that risk is low, considering we're talking about living in a donga on a paddock versus being in and around community. And as Councillor Goodluck alluded to, we have quite a demand for housing and infrastructure in our communities already, that it seems to me like there's a lot of already opportunities there for developers to continue to develop their land if that was something that they were wanting to do, that this wouldn't necessarily be a huge handbrake to that opportunity, but also may allow us to take on some of perhaps the sharp edges of some of those housing experiences in the past. And I know, again, in the report, it does allude to the fact that this is a little bit of a different landscape to what we previously experienced. But we know that construction in and of itself is a very slow and drawn out process at the moment. And just to put a kitchen inside an existing dwelling will take you a couple of years to get that across the line. Having, houses and whole experiences taking 4 or 5 years to get across the line is not really something that's going to be possible or achievable, whereas something like this perhaps could allow us to bridge that gap between the two, whilst there is still opportunity for our continuing community to grow in houses and in spaces that are closer to community. I think, I see the risk as low is probably the comment that I would make on that, but my only last question then would be, if we weren't to progress this process, obviously there is nothing stopping them from applying in the future.
Absolutely.
But what does that time frame on that even look like? You know, regardless of the construction side of things, is that likely to be a 6-month process, a 2-year process, and maybe just a brief idea of the costs involved that we would be putting back on them to do that whole process again if we denied it?
It would be an impact assessable application, so there would be a public notification element. I'm not sure if it has referrals. I would say probably 12 months, the approval process, but in developing the material to make the application, I can't really speak to that.
Yep.
But it's a bit of an indication.
Yep.
Yeah.
And costs of something like this, we've got a ballpark idea?
Just the application fee, do you mean?
Yeah, what's...
It'd be a few $1,000s.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe 5. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
It wouldn't take a cabinet maker 2 years to redo a kitchen, though. Good one. No.
Not a good one.
Yeah.
If I know any.
There's currently a wait in 12 months to get at least that for new homes. Councillor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of questions. One is, we've got a 10-year, the recommendation is for 10-year. Is there a reason that it's 10-year and, say, not 5-year or 2 years? Or
That was the request of the applicant, was 10 years. Council does have the ability to change that if they wish.
And your recommendation was against that. What would be the advantage of, say, making it 2 years? Like if we are forecasting this sort of growth in the next couple of years, we did 2 or 5 years, what would be the impacts of that?
Well, I think 2 years is to have the site ready for commencement. So it's a fairly big development. So it would force the hand, I guess, of the applicant in terms of delivering that project.
Yeah, because it has got a bit of a long history, and I was just wondering whether that might be an option. Also, if this went to impact assessment, what are some of the... I'm thinking like sewer, we have... I know it's got some on-site and what have you. Would this have the capacity, given that we are looking at sewer out in that area, would this have the capacity to...
That hasn't been assessed as part of this application.
Is it... God, I probably can't preempt, but do you foresee any major considerations or impacts on council if this was to go ahead in terms of sewer and infrastructure on our part?
There's not a requirement under the current application for it to be connected. So what we're working with is an existing approval. So we don't have the opportunity to tinker with what the approval says. The question here today is, do we extend it or not extend it?
Yeah. Okay, no worries, thank you.
Okay, I have Councillor Holzheimer, then Councillor Patrick.
I think for me, so I was doing a little bit of research last night as well, and I looked at our figures with the REIQ, and we're down to 1.1% for our rental demand, which is crisis point, really. And I agree with Councillor Churchill, good luck, and McClintock in regards to the pressure our community is already experiencing with housing. And I see from my experience working in the community sector that our people were pushed out in the past. And I know that the new planning scheme is around building legacy, those sorts of things as well. However, I don't see that that's actually feasible to achieve in the timeframes. So for me, I would actually like to put a motion forward that we extend for the 10 years and to go against the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you. Yeah, we will need reasoning why. I'll take that motion, and then we have other councillors want to speak. So it's moved Councillor Holzheimer, second, and Councillor Churchill, that we extend for 10 years, and the reason for going against the officer's recommendation.
Based on the current housing crisis we're experiencing and the pressure that that would add to the community and the demand. Yes, can you fluff it up, please, guys?
And the need for, and Councillor Goodluck has appropriately referred to it in relation to our economic transition, what that demand will be. And I know that there's still that aspect can perhaps be questioned by some, but I also believe those that are in the forefront of it, and perhaps, Mayor Matt, you would be more knowledgeable than most to be at the forefront of what that demand will be in our economic transition for the future.
Significant demand, but have we got that wording? Thank you. Councillor Holzheimer, are you finished with your comments? Can I go to Councillor Patrick before I put motions and other councillors might want to speak?
Thank you. Mine was just more of a comment, totally agreeing with Councillor Holzheimer and her comments. I just wanted to flag with everyone that this isn't a knee-jerk reaction. If we were to go against the application, that it's important that we have our current hotels and accommodation, that these aren't being not utilised in preference to this development as well, which we have seen. So I suppose I just wanted to pass that comment for us to think about, but the reality is we are in a crisis and there is no real quick or easy fix for that. So.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner, then Councillor McClintock.
I know our motion's been put forward, but is there a way I can put a motion forward that it's 5 years rather than 10 to push the hand of this, because it has been around for a while?
Yeah, you can move an amendment.
Can I move an amendment that the period be reduced to 5 years from the not recommended 10 years, from 10 years?
5-year extension period. Councillor Musgrave, you happy to second that? Okay. So we have an amendment to a motion, which is opposite to the officer's recommendation. Councillor McClintock, you had more comments before I put the amendment?
Yeah, sorry, just one quick clarification. Thank you for explaining that 20-year little piece there that Councillor Churchill unpacked a little bit for us. In relation to the other side of the road, the existing development, is it got...
Completely different approval and it's a
Yep.
permanent arrangement.
Great, so it doesn't have a time frame that it's going to be ending anytime soon? Great, that was my only question. Thank you.
Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Helen, the process for the 10 or 5 years, so if the let's say it's 10 years, if the approval is granted today, if the project commences the use within that, then they've got a 20-year window. If they don't commence within that 10-year or 5-year window, is that the end of this, or can they?
They could
apply
request
for
an
another
extension, same process as this, or it lapses.
May I?
Yes.
Yeah, it is to me, it's a very difficult situation, because yes, I understand the situation with accommodation, but the whole point is to encourage developers to build where they're supposed to be building. So we can say this, we can try to help the accommodation situation with this, but at the same time, we're not helping in the other side when we are actually trying to, using the current planning scheme to get people to build in the places where we need them to build, not just want them to build, because of the infrastructure that's in place. So that's why I'm prepared to go with the 5-year. Yeah, I just really wish we could maybe, we see other examples in which we have development applications approved under previous planning schemes, which we are now, thinking how is that we do to not let them continue. And right here, we're doing the exact opposite. And also not understanding maybe the other consequences that come with it. I understand we're in this difficult situation, but I don't want to discourage people from building what they're supposed to be building either.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Goodluck.
I think I'm happy to come on the 5-year journey and we can reassess at the time. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Churchill, then Councillor Wagner, and then I'm going to put the amendment. Councillor Churchill?
No, I just want to deal with a point of clarification here, if you don't mind. Did the original application, just referring back to it again, 3rd of July 2014, the original application by the proponent was approved on the basis that it fulfilled its requirements under the planning scheme?
It was code accessible development under the Calliope planning scheme, yes.
So that takes me back to my point much earlier, which was the grandfather aspect of what occurred. This is not just something you just pick up and move overnight, and that's why I'm just trying to come to grips with the ministerial aspect of another tier of government making a decision for us outside the parameters of this room. But it was approved based on the fact that it fulfilled all its requirements at that time.
At the planning scheme at the time, correct. It was approvable under that code.
I'm happy to stay on the 10-year journey, thank you, and let the Council of the Day in 2034 make the decision, thank you, or the Minister.
Okay. One more? Okay.
One last one.
Your final one more, and then I'll...
Last one for this amendment.
Yes, for the amendment.
For the amendment.
Johnny Farnham down there.
Yeah. You're the voice.
I think, look, it is a quandary, and there's not necessarily a right or wrong thing to do other than by planning schemes. I was happy to go on the 10-year journey. I think the 5 years is... we're going to have a much better understanding of where we sit as far as the potential for future industrial developments, what demand there is, and even what our local housing needs are in a 5-year time period. And it may well be, if I'm sitting here or if someone else is, the Council of the Day in 5 years will be able to, the proponent will be able to make another request at that time if that's what they need. And the Council of the Day will be able to make that consideration, weighing up all of the issues in our community at that point in time. And I think that's reasonable. So that's why I'm happy to go on the 5-year journey. I think 5 years, we should at least have an understanding of a number of these potential projects. They'll either have come to fruition by that time, and it may well be the case that we'll have some of these temporary accommodation facilities constructed by then, and then it will have done its job. And if not, then we can reassess, or whoever sits around the table at the time can reassess it based on the issues of that time in 5 years. So I'm happy to come on support that amendment.
Thank you. Is there any further questions or comments on the amendment? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm happy to go on the 5-year journey as well, I think. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to put the amendment, and if it's carried, it will become the motion. The amendment is that we extend... Sorry, can we put it on the screen? But it is that we extend the relevant period by an additional 5 years for DA 755/201 workers' accommodation, 1,408 rooms, and ERA 63 sewage treatment under the superseded Calliope scheme. Is that what we will be saying? Can I see that? I think we all know it's for 5 years, but nice to see the wording. At the moment, we can see 1138. There it is.
It's 10 years at the moment, we just
Okay. Oh, can we put on the screen that it says 5? And can you remove, does it need additional? Can you just say by 5 years? Or does it need to say additional, Helen?
It doesn't have to say additional.
Sorry, I do have another amendment for that. It needs to say, remove the first 3 words, which is the request to extend, because the request wasn't to extend for 5 years, it was for 10. So just write that the resolution is that council extend, because otherwise it's not correct.
do we need to respond directly to...
There was a request to extend.
It is a request. That's why I've removed the
For 5 years. Oh, okay, right down the, yeah, no. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I thought you were putting up the top first sentence. It makes sense now. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I could actually see it. It was nice.
Couldn't you read it from up?
I could read it, actually. Thank you. I can read that much better. Okay, everyone's clear what the amendment is. The amendment was moved by Councillor Wagner, seconded by Councillor Muscat, and it is on the screen. Lisa, before we put that.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, Tanya, I'm just checking we need to include the reason with the recommendation. The resolution. Now,
It doesn't need to be part of the resolution.
no.
We can make sure we're happy with that.
It doesn't need to be part of the amendment, though, does it? Or does it?
No.
No. No. Good. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to put the amendment, and all in favour of the amendment? Those against? The amendment is carried. The amendment now becomes the resolution. I'm going to put the recommendation from as... Oh, do I need to move it seconded again for the...
Resolution, yes.
Or the amended... I'm going to move the same two people, if that's okay. Councillor Wagner and Muscat to move the motion now, which was the amendment. All in favour? And the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. It's a 5-year extension.
Did you have the reason?
Yeah, we had the reasons that
So
were...
if we're talking about an accommodation crisis, but we're extending a 5-year currency period, that's not to do anything yet. That's just to get things in place. I'm just questioning, do you feel comfortable with that? If you do, that's fine.
It's not just accommodation, but it's also the advance on the
10-year roadmap.
transition situation and how we moving through economic times.
We did highlight those a minute ago, and it'll be recorded on the live stream if you need to go back for minute-taking purposes.
I've recorded at the moment, based on the current housing crisis and the need to support demand related to the transition economy.
Thank you.
I think we need to be careful just using the word housing,
Yeah, it's
because
accommodation.
when you refer to a house in the world out there, it's the 4-bedroom, 2 bathrooms and double roll-up door garage, etc., etc. This is accommodation at all levels. That's temporary, homelessness, permanent accommodation. It's the lot. It's the lot as it stands at the moment. And I think we just need to make sure we don't get confused by that. This is accommodation, demand, the need for a roof over people's head.
Would you like to change from housing to accommodation crisis?
Yes, I thought we did, Councillor Holzheimer. Yeah. Yeah, I think Councillor Holzheimer mentioned housing, and then I said, would you like to use the words mentioned earlier by Councillor Churchill, which was accommodation? It was agreed, and so that's what the reasoning for going against the officer's recommendation will be. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Helen. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is G4.3, which I thought we were at earlier, but we're not. We're there now. Community Investment Program Elevator Fund application, and I'll hand over to the General Manager of Community and Lifestyle, Kylie Lee. Welcome, Brianna, to the table as well. And Jacob.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors. I've got Bride Jansen, our Manager of Community Partnerships with me, and also Jacob Humphreys, the Community Investment Specialist acting. This morning we present back to Council the application by Outback Mines to Council's Community Investment Program Elevator Fund. The application was presented at Council's general meeting on the 23rd of April as one of 5 applications seeking funding. Council has requested officers to seek further information regarding the personnel involved with the Outback Mine and also seek review of the documentary by an independent party. From the review, Outback Mine have implemented the recommendations of the independent party with the exception of the title of the video, as it's already been released publicly. The Outback Mine facilitators have provided a list of qualifications which are included in the report. The 3 facilitators have a range of skills and qualifications that would be appropriate to deliver an awareness program. It should be noted that the video is simply a tool that forms part of the broader awareness program delivered by the Outback Mine. With a focus on educating men to become more emotionally aware, the documentary is used to create space for discussions and promote positive change. Further, the Outback Mine is required to be engaged by organisations in order for the awareness program to be delivered. It is not delivered without consent. I invite any questions councillors may have with regard to the report.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? Councillor Muscat, then Councillor Goodluck.
I There was. Thank you for doing that. I know that it says that the program is to be delivered at sporting clubs and workplaces, which I can see also that obviously sporting clubs are mostly operated by volunteers, and I think that's a good opportunity for them to include some of these activities in their in whatever they do. With the workplaces, it's also interesting. I wish, workplaces could pay for these things themselves, since it's their workplaces, because as it is right now, it looks like we are paying for programs happening at workplaces, which workplaces normally pay for. So the other thing I'm going to say is that I was a bit disappointed, well, not a bit, a lot disappointed at the media that came out and the media comments that were made after we asked for more information. We did not refuse the application for funding. We simply asked for more information because we had very valid questions and because we wanted the best program and the best outcomes for everyone. So, yeah, that was very disappointing to see some of those comments coming from the applicant in the media. So I just wanted to say that. And also to see if there was any, I will encourage people to go and do these. I will encourage them to concentrate on sporting clubs more than if a workplace has the capacity to pay for programs like these, they should be doing it, not the ratepayer. Thank you.
Councillor Muscat, if I can respond, very good statements, all three. I think the intent is to, I guess, capture a captive audience, and a workplace does that, similarly to a sporting group. There is nothing wrong with asking for further questions with respect to applications. It's part of our due diligence that we are required to do as elected representatives around the table. So, thank you.
Councillor Goodluck, and then I think Councillor Wagner, and then McClintock.
I'm just happy to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I know that former Councillor Branthwaite and myself attended one of these sessions. I don't believe it was this specific session, but one last year with our workforce in Agnes Water as well. It was very well received, some very confronting and, great conversations and thinking were had with council workers in the Agnes Water depot. And I thought it was really good. That's not this specific video, I don't believe, but yeah. And it was great. And I have watched this video, and I thought it was great and a relevant discussion point for all people in our community at the moment to think about.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Wagner with questions, I'll need a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Okay, Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the comments so far, and Natalia, well said. Look, I applaud you for sending it to a very good expert, the particular video, and the feedback I think was, really had a lot of positives and some recommendations, which is great, and I do see that the applicant has made some inroads on that. I'm still not convinced that the actual content and the underlying messaging is consistent with what I suppose people within that domestic and family violence industry are really espousing. And as such, I'm wondering why, after the revision was done, I'd be really comfortable if it was sent back to the experts to give that the final tick. And then I think it could be a great thing to send out to, even a wider audience. And I'm curious as to then why it wouldn't be just made public available, because if it has this endorsement, we're giving the messages out to the community and we're supporting this as a community initiative. I'd love to see it out there. And in that they can still, I think they've said the purpose of it really is to encourage people, market and encourage people to the men's circles. And, I think that would be a really good way. They'd be able to go to a website and see it. So I'd like to move a motion that it be deferred and just reviewed again, so we can be confident that that this is something that has that influence from the experts, And in that confidential report, obviously, we know that there was some suggestions that it would be good to engage with people of that. So I'd like to, move the motion that we do that. And we can get back to that or do it now. But I'm also wondering, they're having 25 organisations, but in the report I noticed too, like I'm not seeing where's the planning around this. Like they're delivering it from May, and obviously that would have been deferred because it's had to come back to council, so I get that. But I noticed Outback Mines has more than 30 other activities happening in New South Wales and all over the rest of Queensland between now and December. I do see there is one window of 2 weeks where there's, otherwise there's sort of every 3 days, so that's going to be hard if you're down at Narrabri, for instance. So when will this be delivered? Like I'm not seeing the planning. And I'm also concerned the report still says it's recommended as like it's a sound application when there's still, the applicant has had 2 bites of the cherry in terms of providing the data and some of those success stories. Like would have loved to see the data. I'd love us to be able to say, this is great and, and support it 100%. But there's still some questions here that I don't think are being answered in the material that I'm seeing.
Okay, thank you. Before maybe you answer that, then I just note that Councillor Wagner was want to move a motion, so I might have to come back to that while you think what that is. And Kylie, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can answer it. I think the Outback Mines have taken on the recommendations from the external independent assessor with the exception of the title of the video. So I think they've made every effort to make the relevant changes and also incorporate information from the Queensland Police. The video will never be distributed widely on its own. It is simply a tool that's a part of an awareness program. So I don't think we need to be fearful that it will be vastly distributed. With respect to the planning, the Outback Mine has multiple facilitators that can deliver this awareness course. So whilst the planning schedule hasn't been provided to council, we very rarely ask for that type of information, but there is multiple facilitators that can deliver the program. And the application hasn't been reassessed by the Community Investment Program panel. So the existing successful application still stands.
Oh, does it? Okay. All right. So that probably brings me to the question, sorry. So I was really pleased to see the qualifications of Mr. Wheatley in there in particular. And I'm really keen then to see that Mr. Wheatley is involved in these 25 delivery within the Gladstone region in that period of time. So I take it, and can I be assured that you've reviewed these qualifications and you're confident that what is included in that particular application are all verified? Absolutely. And I know that they do have other facilitators, but one of the questions that was raised last time was about these qualifications. So if they do them in this region, I would like to make sure that we do that we put something in place to make sure that they are done by the right people in that respect.
Okay. Councillor Wagner, it's an awareness program. It's not an intervention program. So I believe the qualifications listed by all 3 of those facilitators would be appropriate to deliver an awareness session for men. And as they said, the intent for this is to educate men to become more emotionally aware and used to create space for discussion. The other facilitators also come from the men's circle.
Yep. I understand that, but it still is, and there is wording in there, it is still about supporting changing of behaviour. And obviously there are sort of organisations that operate in that regulated environment, and there are a lot of frameworks and guidelines, and I suppose without seeing the video itself and having that reassessed for the second time, I can't support it.
Okay, hold that thought. You'd like to move into confidential. I'm not sure if I can.
No, we can't. We've been there.
What would be your reasoning?
I want to discuss some of the confidential attachments, ask a question about them.
Unable to do that unless, sorry.
Yeah, that's on.
Unable to discuss confidential attachments unless there's a reason for going into confidential that meets the legislative requirements. So things like entering into a contract and those sorts of requirements. So if council wanted to defer the decision to have further discussions, that is something you might want to consider, but we can't unless there's a reason that complies.
Can I ask a quick question? Can you just again, there was an assessment of the video. Can you please again tell me how the video is going to be used in these circles?
The video will be used as a tool as part of an awareness session. So there's a video, then there's some speaking and some awareness sessions that accompany the video by businesses that engage the Outback Mine Foundation.
Okay.
Councillor Wagner, you were suggesting that you might like to move an amendment.
Amendment or a deferral. Can I do two?
I currently have a motion from Councillor Goodluck and Holzheimer that the officer's recommendation be approved.
Okay.
So I can only accept an amendment to that motion, and the amendment could be that the motion be deferred.
Okay. I think given that I have to ask the question, and I'm trying to be careful on how I word it. I ask councillors to consider if the feedback was a public document, would you still feel the same way? And without having, I suppose someone really endorse the information out there giving, we have had 49 women die from domestic and family violence related issues, and it is one of those areas that I suppose it's fairly prominent. It's on the lips of everyone, but there is a lot of governance and framework around it. I would just feel more confident if we could, if I can move a motion to defer.
Mm-hmm. You can.
Sorry.
Tanya's looking at me, but I'm pretty confident you can do that.
So long as it's an amendment to the current motion. Yes.
That's class.
So we have a motion before us.
You don't think that's classed as an amendment to that? No, because it's too far different to the...
I don't think so.
Fair call.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, when a motion is moved or second shall become the subject, shall not be withdrawn without the consent of council. So it could be withdrawn, the motion could be withdrawn. If you want to consider another one, is another potential option.
It could be, but it's vastly different to the amendment. And
So can I have some guidance here?
the only thing I can do is, it was really, I put the motion that is placed, and if it's passed, then it is passed. If it's defeated, then you can move an alternate motion. I'm happy for councillors to have more conversation about this topic before I put that motion, but unless your amendment is something similar to the approval, like the last amendment was reducing it from 10 years to 5 years. It was very similar amendment to the motion that was put. A deferral is completely different. I would be quite happy to accept it as a motion and put it to the floor, but my governance office telling me, no, I'm not allowed. Sometimes...
You are the chair, Mayor. It's just
You're
a
the
suggestion.
chair, but perhaps the mover of the original motion might make comment.
Which was Councillor Goodluck, yes.
I must confess I don't really understand the concerns. So I would say that the proposed amendment is vastly different to the original motion. To me, this, and I have watched the video, it was confronting. It seems like they've taken on the feedback from other experts in the field, and this is a national issue at the moment, and I think sometimes it's good to have some confronting challenging conversations with both men and women to think about how we address these issues as a society. To me, it's stated that it will happen in controlled environments, and there will be supports on offer. I don't think this is a program or a video that is designed to offer comprehensive therapy support. It is an awareness-raising video. The fact that it happens in many other parts of the state and other parts of the country as well, I think it's worth supporting here in our own region as well. So I'm happy to support this moving forward. And as I said, I've sat with our staff. There were tears. There were tears from grown men in our own council staff, not with this specific video, but with the Healing Minds video. It was a challenging, confrontational discussion, and I think everyone walked out of that room. And to me, this is designed to challenge people about how they perceive this issue, and hopefully to go and get help and support in whatever space you might be if you're experiencing this. And I think that's something that we need to try, because what we are doing is not working according to the statistics, according to the 49 women that have lost their lives. This is not a bad thing to me. This is something that can help our community with this issue. So I'm happy to stand by the original motion. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McClintock, then Councillor Holzheimer, and then I'll come back to Councillor Wagner.
I just want to be really careful here. I don't want to pretend to speak on behalf of anybody else in this room, but I want to start by saying that domestic violence is a stain on our social norms, and it's a very, very prevalent and disturbing part of our current society, and something that we don't take lightly, and it's not something that we're trying to disappear. And I think it's I've walked with people on this journey in the past. I don't claim to be any type of expert at all in this area, but it's also not a very straightforward area as well. It's a very complex whole area to try and unpack and try and work through with people, which is part of the reason why it's so difficult to make progress in this area. It is something that was alluded to in the report and the response from the proponents Outback Mines, that this isn't the answer. This is part of a solution, a part of a conversation. I'd probably say in response to one of your comments, Councillor Wagner, that I actually don't support this video being out and a part of a public thing, because I think quality conversations over quantity conversations is something that's really important in this area, that we are having those quality conversations about people that challenge them, that push them to really reconsider what it is that they believe and the things that they have experienced or have thought as normal for their upbringing that perhaps aren't. And how do we understand what is actually normal without having those conversations and challenging those in not a public setting, but in a setting where others are able to have input into what our experiences are, or into our thoughts and opinions on what is socially acceptable in our minds. So I think avoiding conversations is not something that we can have. In my experience in my past, is that we should always look back retrospectively and think, what was I doing? I didn't do it right, because we're actually progressing and we're actually going forwards, and what we do around this area today, maybe in 10 years' time we'll look back and say, well, maybe we could have done that better, but retrospectively is a great way to go, except if we don't do anything, we still will be here in 10 years' time having the same level of conversations. I think silence is one of the main issues that this area feeds on, and one of the main reasons that this is still such a massive issue for people is that it is not being spoken about. And I think anyone who is willing to invest into having quality conversations, are they going to be perfect? I don't think so. But are they going to start some of those conversations that need to happen, that mean that it's not 40 next year, but it's maybe we save one person. The statistics that I found from 2020 are that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence. This is not something that is just a small minority of our community. This is a massive issue across both genders. And I think if we can help facilitate conversations that are healthy, it is part of our part in playing the greater picture of what this looks like. Yes, there's professionals. Yes, there's need for intervention from quality sources and all different spaces, but I think it'd be remiss of us to not be supporting conversations to begin, that maybe through this process they even begin to develop some of those understandings. I did read through the recommendations in the confidential part there, and I understand that there's a little bit of hesitation around some of the responses and some of the comments in that section, but I guess without going into that side of things, I think this is an opportunity to see the conversation begin, and how do we progress a conversation if we don't start it. And so I'd like to support the original motion as well, where we actually help create a progress in this area that maybe in the future we look back on and say, well, that's where it started, but look at how far we've come. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Holzheimer and then back to Councillor Wagner.
I suppose my big question for the officers is what has been the learning and then the take home from this whole experience that will then shape and impact further panels that actually sit down to discuss the community investment program, because this has brought up a lot of topics and conversations, and we're here again exploring this. So I'd really like to know how you expect that this will impact future applications and the learnings, and how you can maybe bring back if we need to look further at the way we do this process and the policy that actually supports it, or those sorts of things. What would that maybe look like, Kylie?
Thank you. It's a great question, Councillor Holzheimer. I think from this process, it's really given us, it's opened our eyes with respect to qualifications that are required to deliver particular programs. So I think that's an easy incorporation into our application process. So most certainly, I think it's been a good process to do, and it's been something, it's a very important topic in our society, and everyone has a part to play. So I do think there's opportunity for us to just ask for a little bit more information within that application process. So that's something we can implement quite quickly.
Beautiful. Councillor Wagner.
No worries. I just want to reiterate that it'll be nice to see, it would be nice to have a copy of that video, and I noticed that Councillor Goodluck said that he has seen the updated version, have you, of this?
Not the updated, the original.
Okay. All right, the one that's subject to that report.
Yeah, but I imagine there's some minor changes to it.
The officers have suggested there were some quite significant ones.
Yeah.
I just hope that women's and children's safety and men's accountability are now the focus of that video. And I'd also like to point out too, when we're talking about process, I'm wondering, Mrs. Lee, is this, I see that's contingent on them providing, the applicant providing the acquittal. Has that been done now, or?
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. It's Ms. Lee, sorry, but I'm
Ms.
very happy for Kylie.
Ms.
Kylie's
Sorry.
great, thank you.
Ms.
The acquittal is not due yet for the 2023 funding, and it's in process at the moment. Jacob's currently working with the Outback Mines on successfully acquitting their 2023 funding.
22-23, is that? Yeah, okay. Also, I notice in the policy that it says that the organisation shouldn't rely on recurrent funding. I note, and one of them obviously is a different funding stream, so we can ignore that, but I will raise that we've given them $11,000, this particular application in 2022-23 under the RADF for men's emotional literacy. We've then the same year under this particular fund given them $30,000 for emotional literacy, and now we're looking at over $20,000 again to do some other things, but emotional literacy is that is the intent of this policy to not fund recurrent funding or not?
The recurrent funding is in the guidelines, Councillor Wagner, and organisations can apply for recurrent funding, and you'll see that the funding isn't for the same thing over and over, it's for different initiatives. It could be potentially detrimental to exclude recurrent funding out of the guideline. The Elevator Fund does fund some recurrent programs such as the Gladstone Chamber of Commerce Local Buy campaign and also some of our mental health first aid programs within our regions. So it could be detrimental to exclude recurrent funding from the guideline itself.
So does this, does the guideline not sort of come under this particular policy then? Is that right? Or?
The policy is for council to decide on. The corporate standard requires sign off by our CEO, and the guidelines are operational and come under the general manager.
Okay, no worries. All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, more to go?
Does anyone else want to?
I think Councillor Muscat does.
I'll come back after Councillor Muscat.
I just wanted to, I guess, since we couldn't really discuss some of the confidential attachments, I guess this exercise has paid off at the end of the day. I think from the officer's perspective, we learned a lot of things. From our perspective, we also learned a lot of things. I don't think we were wrong in asking to go back and have a look at this, because those recommendations that you just advised that they taken on as per the information we have been given, hopefully it has helped them also understand the issue better. Look, again, it will be good to, I guess, see the final product, but we were just going to go, well, we just trust that that's what happened. I do value the discussions. It isn't. I don't think that's what we're saying. We all want to see the best outcome at the end of the day. But this exercise just proved that a lot of our concerns were actually justified. So I'm glad we did it. So.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner.
Just one other question, Miss Kylie. Have you seen the updated version?
No, I haven't seen the updated version. I put full trust in my officers to make recommendations. If I was to see the revised version, I'd probably like to see it delivered with the awareness program as well, and not just the video.
No worries. And did your officers get to see the updated?
They've been sent a copy and viewed it, yes.
Okay, and they're satisfied that it has met those recommendations?
In accordance with the feedback that Outback Mind have provided us, I'm confident that, what they've said they have implemented, they have in fact implemented.
And what about in line with the recommendations in the review report?
Yep, they've addressed each of the recommendations separately, and I believe the only one that they were unable to change or chose not to change was the title, being Boiling Point, given that the documentary had already been launched prior to this funding application coming to Council. And just to clarify, I guess, that the funding application that has come to Council is not actually for the documentary itself, it's for the facilitated sessions, and Horizon actually funded the video production.
Yep. Okay, no, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. It's a lot of conversation for a $20,000 item, but I get the feeling in the room. I did have questions around the confidential comments, but I won't go there, obviously, because we can't. Just the comments, and I think Councillor Wagner raised important point there about the comments in the confidential section. And I think Councillor McClintock maybe hit the nail on the head. If you don't have the conversation, you don't know whether it was the right conversation to have or not. So I haven't seen the video either, and I don't know enough about what was in the previous video either to comment. So I'm going to take this one on the advice of councillors. I was just about to put the motion, but Councillor Wagner?
If I want to call for a division, when do I do that?
After we vote, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If it's carried.
All right, thank you.
Or even if it's not carried, you can still call a division. Councillor, good luck. I'm about to put the recommendation that you moved. Did you want to add anything to that?
I just wanted to say, Mr Mayor, as a person who comes from a trade background, who sat in crib huts and smoko rooms with lots of blokes. I've never had that sort of facilitated session, and I think it would be, as I said before, very confrontational, very challenging conversation to have, but a fantastic conversation to see that happening in those sorts of workplaces and sporting clubs. Maybe this is a different way of doing things. Maybe it might not be as successful as we think, but it's a different way of doing things. And I think it's part of that preventative space and having those discussions with people in our community. And from a person who, from that background, I would have loved to have seen that.
Thank you. I was about to put the motion, but I'll let the Deputy Mayor have the final say, and then I am putting the motion.
Okay, thank you. I am very sorry, Councillor Goodluck, that you haven't had those conversations in your workplace. It's obviously something that workplaces need to look at if they wish to, although they're also not responsible for everything in everyone's lives. I have been since 2010 delivering lap bites programs to, well, on and off, but since 2010, and I know many of our colleagues around the sector doing evidence-based programs around domestic and family violence. We do a video, we have conversations, and this isn't like, something that different. We've been doing it for many years, and it's been done with evidence-based research, with professional people that understand the impact on everyone, and how these conversations not just have to have those very challenging and shocking truths in front of you, but they also have to have women in them. So, and probably that's where I'll leave it.
Okay, thank you. I think we've had enough conversation and questions and debate on this issue. I'm going to put the motion moved by Councillor Goodluck, second by Councillor Holzheimer, that the officer's recommendation be approved. All in favour? Those against? Division called? So can I have all councillors in favour, please? Let the record show Councillor Goodluck, Councillor Davis, Councillor Holzheimer, Councillor McClintock, Councillor Churchill, Councillor Patrick and myself voted in favour of the motion, and those against, Councillor Wagner and Councillor Muscat. Thank you. We will now break for lunch, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Well, in the Gladstone region, we're absolutely spoilt for options. Me personally, I've got a young family, so we like to hang out in parks on the weekend, which there's that many. We like to mix it up and really keep it exciting for the young kids, which they love. Me personally, I'm into fitness, lots of running trails, lots of walking trails. I love mountain biking, and if you like mountain biking, Gladstone's one of the best regions. What makes me proud to work for Gladstone Regional Council is the fact that we get to make a difference every day. The fact that when you see kids having parties on the weekends at parks, knowing the work that you did during the week has resulted in them having a really good time. My name is Ryan Haney. I'm a technical officer for the Gladstone Regional Council.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Well, in the Gladstone region, we're absolutely spoilt for options. Me personally, I've got a young family, so we like to hang out in parks on the weekend, which there's that many. We like to mix it up and really keep it exciting for the young kids, which they love. Me personally, I'm into fitness, lots of running trails, lots of walking trails. I love mountain biking, and if you like mountain biking, Gladstone's one of the best regions. What makes me proud to work for Gladstone Regional Council is the fact that we get to make a difference every day. the fact that when you see kids having parties on the weekends at parks, knowing the work that you did during the week has resulted in them having a really good time. My name is Ryan Haney. I'm a Technical Officer for the Gladstone Regional Council.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Well, in the Gladstone region, we're absolutely spoilt for options. Me personally, I've got a young family, so we like to hang out in parks on the weekend, which there's that many. We like to mix it up and really keep it exciting for the young kids, which they love. Me personally, I'm into fitness, lots of running trails, lots of walking trails. I love mountain biking, and if you like mountain biking, Gladstone's one of the best regions. What makes me proud to work for Gladstone Regional Council is the fact that we get to make a difference every day. The fact that when you see kids having parties on the weekends at parks, knowing the work that you did during the week has resulted in them having a really good time. My name is Ryan Haney. I'm a technical officer for the Gladstone Regional Council.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Within the Gladstone region, we're absolutely spoilt for options. Me personally, I've got a young family, so we like to hang out in parks on the weekend, which there's that many. We like to mix it up and really keep it exciting for the young kids, which they love. Me personally, I'm into fitness, lots of running trails, lots of walking trails. I love mountain biking, and if you like mountain biking, Gladstone's one of the best regions. What makes me proud to work for Gladstone Regional Council is the fact that we get to make a difference every day. The fact that when you see kids having parties on the weekends at parks, knowing the work that you did during the week has resulted in them having a really good time. My name is Ryan Haney. I'm a Technical Officer for the Gladstone Regional Council.
Thank you, councillors, thank you, officers, and welcome back to those watching on live stream, and our two members of the gallery still here. And the next item on the agenda is G4.4, which is the lease of Lot 1 SP 170940 at 41 Blomfield Street, Miriam, Vale, to the RSL Queensland branch, Wide Bay Burnett District Branch Incorporated. And I'll hand it back to General Manager of Community and Lifestyle, Kylie Lee. Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We present for Council's consideration the disposal by lease arrangement of said lot, Mr Mayor, that you just mentioned at 41 Blomfield Road at Miriam, Vale to the RSL Agnes branch. The property in question, as identified in your report, was previously the residential property for the Miriam Vale Council CEO and then utilised as the Miriam Vale Library. The property's been vacant since 2015. Council has been utilising the building to support the place of refuge at Miriam Vale Community Centre for showers and amenities. The building's no longer required to support the place of refuge, thanks to funding to improve the Miriam Vale Community Centre to include the necessary amenities for the place of refuge. The RSL intend to utilise the property for administration and for information and training and for a veteran drop-in centre. This report is brought to Council as the officer's recommendation is to offer the property to the RSL as per their expression of interest. The only other EOI received for the building was from the Curtis Coast Arts Alliance for the display of artwork, which potentially we could redirect them to another vacant property that Council has, which is the former Miriam Vale Visitor Information Centre. I invite any questions from councillors.
Thank you. I think we're having some technical issues. So is
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, sorry, Councillor Churchill's.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was ever so pleased to see this finally on the agenda for discussion and or decision. I don't like the recommendation. I love it. I love it in actual fact because we have waited so long for it to get here. As such, the only point I wanted to raise, and now all of a sudden my agenda has gone as well. No, I've got it. It's back again. So the only thing I wanted to point out, and I'm so pleased that you've also mentioned the other alternative, because we have waited, be it 9 years, for this to come. And I realise there's a lot of work happens behind the scene, as such, in the engine room to get these properties put to good use in the community. But I wanted to make reference to dot point B. And I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation, Mayor Matt. Very excited to, in actual fact, because I know, and others around, my colleagues would be well aware of what the Return and Services League, Wide Bay and Australia and the Burnett district are going to do there as such. But it was in dot point B, and this is probably a tongue-in-cheek comment, at a rental of $1 per annum, which is good, peppercorn lease, payable on demand. I don't think we need to demand that they pay. If I had $10 in my pocket today, I've got a credit card, I'd pay the $10 for them, just purely and simply. I'm not sure what payable on demand means, unless, of course, that was something that means to, when it's a great amount of money, I understand that in the commercial world.
No, it means that we don't ask for it. It means it's only due if we demand it.
Well, okay, so it's just a choice of terminology.
Yeah.
If we decide to ask them for the $10, then we may ask them.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a kinder word that could be used rather than payable on demand. But I'm happy to pay the $10 today to get it done. But anyway, I'm very pleased to see that, and hopefully... No, okay then, all right. So you're not demanding it today. But anyway, happy to move that. Thank you. I love it.
Thank you. Second of that, thank you, Councillor Muscat. Further questions, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Looks like a great initiative, thank you. I'm just wondering, with this, was there any indication that the RSL would, I see it's still community facilities or zoned for that, will they be sort of allowing other organisations to utilise some of that space, or what was the...
I haven't seen that mentioned in any of their correspondence to date, given that, though, I do only have the recent history of this, with community leasing just coming over to my area. Tanya may have some further correspondence. There is mention, though, of making offices and training rooms, so they may be available for hire. Council's general stance on that with a peppercorn lease is, so long as they're only hiring for cost recovery purposes, that's fine. They're not there to make a profit off it.
Right, okay. No worries, thank you.
All right, no. Any further questions? No, I would just like to echo Councillor Churchill's comments. This has been a long time coming, and I'm very excited to see this recommendation on our papers today. And there's still the vacant building at the old Visitor Information Centre that I would very much like to see filled as well by a community organisation, perhaps maybe the other tenderers or someone else. But I will leave that
Visitor
there.
Information Centre.
Sorry? As a Visitor Information Centre. Well, maybe Councillor Davis could take that back, GAPDL, and they might decide to put another one back there. There's a reason why it closed down. Everyone is accessing everything on their apps these days, and that's the way it is. Anyway, I have a mover in Councillor Churchill and a second in Councillor Muscat, I think, yes. For the officer's recommendation, no further questions or comments. Put the motion all in favour. Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Bri. G4.5 is Councillor Expense Reimbursement and Provision of Facilities, and I'll hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes. Thank you, Mark.
Afternoon, councillors. This item is to consider a review of the council expenses and reimbursement policy. You'll note that this policy has had several amendments made to it, principally in and around removing the rates per kilometre piece and attaching to the relevant ATO rates, looking at a review of the essentially your meal limits and then introducing a daily limit, looking at the vehicle expenses and how they are recovered, and also looking at how we allow limited personal use of those administrative tools, as well as a uniform piece. So working through that, we've included those amendments to your policy, and is there for your consideration.
Thank you. Questions to General Manager, please. No questions. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Seconded, Councillor McClintock. All in favour? Motion's carried. That was easy. G 4.6 is cemetery and cremation policy. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is a review of the cemetery and crematorium policy, and essentially is an update of our 2019 policy that actually hasn't been updated since we've done our cemetery master planning and growth planning in 2022. So we have updated this to essentially cater for a number of emerging issues that have emerged both with our plan, but also dealing with some customer requests we've had over that period. So this does look at how we work through the catering for Muslim burials, and there's no inhibitors in this space. We can cater for those. This does set out the criteria for essentially where we do accept burials and where we won't be able to. But also, one piece in this is that there won't be the allowance of reservations. And certainly the concern in this space is that you essentially end up with the reservations of land and plots that essentially take up all your capacity, and you're essentially building new facilities ahead of when you actually would need them. So happy to recommend the policy to you for your consideration.
Yeah, I've got a question on that. The removal of reservations. I was looking for the amendments for Muslim burials, and I found that, and thank you. I didn't pick up the removal of reservations.
We actually haven't had reservations since it was in the 90s. I think there has been no reservations, particularly for cemetery pieces. We have had reservations of the.
That's why I didn't pick it up then. This is not in there. Yeah.
And but what we're finding is that so that's where we have had those pieces.
There you go. I thought you could reserve a plot.
We haven't actually.
Oh. Since the 90s.
So in the review, officers' reviewers. That's certainly what the.
They would have all been in the old Gladstone Cemetery then.
Absolutely.
And there's probably still some in there though.
Yeah, look, we still honour those reservations. We absolutely honour the reservations we do have.
Yep.
And we've certainly got a list and notations of all those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Churchill, then McClintock.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I raise this on behalf of a request that's come from Mr. Vlodman's, long history, where the family themselves currently have a plot. And I know that there's no change in this, and this is in relation to their request in relation to the family plaque, not necessarily the internment. It's just the plaque, not wanting to change the size of the plaque. It's the engraving on the plaque that they were wanting to put their family on the plaque. It's been rejected through a CSR process, understandably because it doesn't comply with the policy. So I suppose my question at this stage is that it's now gone through and has chosen to take what is known as an AAC, an administrative action complaint that's been provided for them to take that as a course of action for that to be reviewed. But I'd just like to get some understanding in our policy. And I do understand their circumstances, and again, these sort of things can be emotional when it's about families wanting to be with families once they've passed on, respectfully. But their request has been to put the names on the plaque of the family, even though they're not interned there, and that's been rejected. So I'd just like to, because what will happen now appropriately is they will now have to go off and use other places within the memorial parklands for them to be within that memorial parklands. I still cannot understand. I'm trying to find some common sense in amongst this. So I suppose my question is, the policies before us here today, the matter of the request from the Vlodman's family, who have a long history to the Boyne Tannum area. We've got parklands named after them, and a lot of history and a lot of contribution by that family. They're not asking to reserve anything. They're not asking to change the size of the plaque, they're just simply wanting to recognise the family members on the size of the plaque. So all that taken into consideration, and it is part of a CSR 748030, but I raise it today on their behalf. I'd like to know if it goes through an administrative action complaint and they see otherwise, what's the process for making a modification to the policy, depending on what the decision is today?
I can't comment on the specific AAC. I'm not aware of all the details, and there's often a number of details that go into it. If the AAC is unacceptable to the customer, they can ask for an internal review. It's just a review of the decision to make sure we've followed our processes. From time to time, out of that internal review process, there may be recommendations made by the panel, but we generally would not go against the existing policy. So I would encourage the customer to let the process go through, and as a constituent, as any constituents, they're able to lobby councillors for policy change if that is their wish.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure.
Can you explain that for us, though? I don't understand what the issue is. What do they want to do? I know this family very well.
No, thank you for that. Thanks for that, Mayor. They actually want to put the family names on the plaque. The family names on the plaque for those that have passed away, whether their ashes have been scattered or
and why can't they?
Whatever. Well, because the policy doesn't allow for it. The policy only allows for the plaque of a certain size on the rock with the 4 names. Only the 4 names. We only allow 4 names on that plaque.
Okay. Who is the interment rights holder then? Is that? It says memorial plaques are the responsibility of the interment rights holder and may be organised through a funeral director or private supplier. Do all of our plaques have to be exactly the same numbers of letters or lines and things? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't believe so, but I think we do have to be careful about the customer's privacy in discussing a customer service request in an open forum.
Yeah, okay, then I'm not wanting to go into confidential, and I don't think we've got grounds to go into a confidential. I'm just simply, all right, well, rather than making reference explicitly to that, within the policy, if you've got the 4 names of those that are on the plaque, can you add a 5th if it doesn't change anything relevant to the internment on that plaque? And perhaps I'll use my circumstance. My wife and my 3 children, 4 of us are on the plaque, and then the 3rd one passes away. Could I come along later on and just put their name on that plaque as a family plaque? I can't under the policy, but they're not interned.
Mr Mayor, just from my quick reading of the policy, I don't believe that specific level of detail is contained here. It may be, but it's probably within the corporate standard, which is a separate supporting document that is what our officers cover. Could I suggest we take this offline? We're happy to follow through with the process and come back and talk to you about the outcomes of that if there are concerns with how that's being
Okay, well, based on that advice and that information, I'm prepared to go forward on it. And it sounds like ex-councillor Rick Hanson's words ringing in my ear. Trust the process. So, all right, thank you.
I backed that horse. It didn't do any good. Anyway, thanks, Rick. Good tip. Councillor McClintock, then Wagner.
I think just wanting to make comment on this. This is something that's not. It's an area that is very emotionally charged, obviously, and I don't want to seem like this boardroom has taken this as just a tick and flick exercise. I know there's been quite robust conversations around this particular policy and how this is outworked, specifically around the idea of people wanting to be buried together and how that outworks and what that looks like. There was mention, and I just wanted to make mention of it in this space as well, that there is opportunity still, even within this policy, for people to be buried together, but it would require the movement of an existing burial plot where you can be buried together in a separate location. So there's obviously great costs involved in that, but this doesn't totally remove the ability for people and family members to be buried together, but it does obviously complicate it if that's something that people are concerned about and understand that people would want to be buried together, and there's all sorts of considerations around that. And I'm happy to see that we've put some considerations in there and adjusted some things to allow for even other community members, our Muslim community, to be a part of their process as well. So, I think just wanted to encourage community, I guess, that are concerned about this issue, that there are still opportunities there, and also that, ready to have those conversations should they need to, but understand it's quite a, it's a difficult process no matter where you're at on that journey. So thank you for your time and effort into this as well, and for answering our questions.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner?
No, well said. All good. Thank you.
Councillor Goodluck? Happy to move. Thank you. Moved Councillor Goodluck, seconded Councillor Muscat. The officer's recommendation be approved. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. G4.7 is annual insurance renewals. This is where I have a conflict of interest, and I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor.
Sorry. Don't go too far. Oi. Okay, so this is item G 4.7, annual insurance renewals. And we have again Mark Holmes, General Manager, Finance, Governance and Risk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This item has been drawn up with respect to our public liability insurance. That is through essentially LGM insurance. So as we've talked about, essentially it's a mutual that's operated for local government and to the benefit of local government, and we do get some returns from that that offset some of those premium costs. So this specific paper is with respect to the public liability insurance renewal and is asking for you to endorse that insurance renewal. There is an alternative there that you may want to consider, is that this is the first of these LGM renewals. We do have essentially what is called our LGM assets, so essentially our property insurance, and then we also have essentially our work cover, so through LGW Work Care. So there is an alternative recommendation there that would around supporting an approval to basically get that essentially approval for each of those renewals to be endorsed, and a report to come back to you with those essentially the outcomes of each of those renewals. So this was drafted particularly for that public liability, but I think there is an opportunity there to expedite those other renewals as well.
Okay, great. I think, Councillor Goodluck.
I'm happy to move the alternate motion there that Council authorise the CEO to finalise each of the insurance renewals under each of the local government self-insurance scheme, etc., for LGM liability, assets and work care. It's fairly standard items, and LGM is for anyone wondering, is a insurance organisation set up by the Local Government Association of Queensland, by councils, for councils, and they're almost always the most competitive option for us.
So. Happy to second it with council.
Okay, Councillor Churchill will second it, but there's a few questions. Councillor McClintock.
Yeah, I just wanted to make comment, probably Khan's kind of mostly wrapped that up, but that, just to clarify for the sake of anyone listening, that this isn't a monopoly situation, but is in a sense the best option. We're satisfied from an operational point of view that others aren't comparatively or I guess better off suited to service our needs in this area.
No, in terms of insurance, you're getting better than market rates because you're buying as a collective and on behalf of the whole of Queensland local government, and those costs are then shared across the whole scheme. Certainly, there has been times, and certainly I've questioned as well with respect to even LGM assets, whether that particularly, given the risks that council is exposed to, particularly in Queensland with respect to property, our risks with respect to cyclone and flooding are generally a lot more higher than some other parts of the nation, whether there is any concern there. History has shown over the last 3 years that isn't the case, and that our insurance premiums remain competitive.
And I believe if I read the report right, the profits from that particular organisation are then fed back into local government and distributed around.
So they come back in the form of premium reductions.
And we're not making, great. Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark.
Councillor McClintock, it's probably also worthwhile pointing out that the underwriters that these insurances seek out are similar underwriters to what any other insurance agent would be accessing. And it is our collective buying power that gives us the advantage.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wagner?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, obviously they're set up and they're, good value. I'm just curious, if we do all three at one, do we actually get like even a better benefit because we're doing the three?
We're doing all three. They are our current insurers. So this report's more about authorising the expenditure of those.
All right, okay.
So if we were to only approve the one, we would have to bring back each of those other two. More to do with essentially your financial delegations.
No worries, thank you.
I think Councillor Davis has a question.
Thank you. We're not doing the cyber liability at the moment, are we? It's just, what, 3 did you say, sorry?
Yeah, we do cyber liability.
But is that one of the ones that we're doing at the moment?
No.
No, thank you.
Yes, it
It
is.
is
Sorry,
part of the
cyber
liability
liability
one.
is included
one of
as
the
part of our, yes.
I just had a question on the amount that we're covered for, just compared to the others. And I know, obviously, with, what is happening around the world with the cyber issues, I'm just wondering, obviously, are we covered enough?
Our level of coverage, this is what's offered by LGM liability, and it's consistent with other local governments. If council wanted us to seek additional coverage over and above that, we certainly could price that, but at the moment $2 million is standard. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? So we have the alternative motion, moved by Councillor Goodluck, seconded by Councillor Churchill. All in favour? Against? No one? Carried. Thank you. And we can call the Mayor back. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, councillors. Next item on the agenda is G4.8, which is Specialised Supplier, Redeye Apps, Pty Ltd. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is with respect to our essentially drawing management system, Redeye, which is used by essentially not only our records management system, but all of our engineers and our field staff with respect to the recall of engineering drawings in the field. So we get as constructed and other drawings with respect to each of our assets and services added into that platform and are then easily accessed when people are out on site with respect to those. We went out and for this contract in 2019. It's now been installed and in use, and this is looking at a continuation of that. And given that it is essentially, it would essentially be impractical to go out and source that again.
Thank you. Any questions for General Manager? All in favour? Oh, sorry, motion? Mover? Move Councillor Muscat, seconded Councillor Goodluck. All in favour? No, that's carried. G4.9 is our monthly financial report for the period ending 30th of June 2024. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is with respect to your financials to the end of June 2024. They aren't our audited financials. We are still going through that statement preparation process and working through the finalisation of what we call our accruals and that, just to make sure that we're updating those costs and putting everything back into last year that should be there. So essentially it's really just a state of time as to where we're at. And we will bring back, as part of our audit process, those final financial statements. You'll see from that that our revenue is probably sitting a little bit higher than we had anticipated it to be, whilst it's a little bit below forecast. We do have additional revenue to come in and be accrued back, particularly with respect to our water consumption revenue that will come back in and then be accrued against this year. We do have some additional receipts to report. We have received additional income and tax equivalents from the Water Board and through the others, and that total takes it up to $27.6 million. So that was an additional receipt of around about $30.5 million than we had anticipated. That is offset to a certain extent, and to a large extent, by the fact that we didn't actually receive our financial assistance grant within the 23-24 financial year. We did receive, I'll call it the prepayment in inverted commas. We received it actually in the 24-25 financial year, and we received that on the 2nd of July. So, yes, we have received an amount, but we received it essentially in the wrong financial year. And because with respect to our revenue standards, we've got to treat that as cash when we receive it. So therefore, it's actually in this financial year. So,
which has caused no one perceived conflicts at all across the nation in terms of some states got it paid in the right financial year, and other states, including Queensland, was paid in the wrong financial year, which just really is when the QAO, Queensland Audit Office, are looking at councils across Queensland, and some will look very unsustainable because they received their financial assistance grants payment 2 days later. We're just fortunate we have a reasonably large rate base that we can absorb that.
So when you note that actually our annual receipt last year was just circa 400,000 compared to 9 million with respect to that. That's the impact on some of those councils.
Interesting that the QAOs, next time they start throwing around the world unsustainable for councils, there'll be some of them that just received their payment 2 days later. Yeah. Well, it was really, to be fair, the federal government paid it in the right financial year to the state, and by the time the state paid it to us, it was too late. But other states managed to get theirs paid in time.
I'm sure they don't have to wait for the cheque to clear.
No, but realistically, that just is another argument as to why the federal government should be able to pay councils directly.
I was just about to say,
cut out the middleman and pay councils directly, and then you don't have this issue.
The answer there is the process. The process is that with respect to financial assistance grants is that the federal government pays it to the state, and the state through Queensland Treasury then works through and then distributes it to councils. So that extra step is probably what's cost that bit of time, and has seen that movement in that recognition of that.
True, but other states managed to get it paid on time. Anyway, thank you.
You're saying we should constitutionally recognise local government.
That's exactly what I said.
That's what I said.
Just hold that motion for a little while. It'll get raised again soon. Yeah.
With respect to our other grant receipts, both operating and capital, they are essentially very much in line with where we had anticipated to finish the financial year. Our expenditure is a little bit behind, which is pleasing to see, but we will have those accruals come back in with respect to that, which should push us very close to that forecast figure of just under 245. So we are expecting a surplus of in and around $11 million at the end of the year. With respect to your capital program, pleased to report that before accruals we're at 65 million, and they'll expect that will increase slightly as we work through. So we'll actually end up being very close to where we actually started the budget year.
Councillor Churchill, have questions?
Yep.
Yes, thanks for that. Only minor matters.
Yep.
I suppose just trying to get an understanding in my own mind. On page 41, you made reference to the valuation fees, $200,000, traditionally paid in July and accrued back to June. Can you just explain that to me? The valuation fees, $200,000.
Yep. So we pay each year to Department of Natural Resources essentially a valuation fee. So essentially it's to
doing
to
nothing.
Get it. Well,
anyway,
every
anyway,
couple
yes.
years.
Yes.
Every couple of years you will get essentially your rateable valuations updated.
Yeah.
But agree that's the cost of providing that service from the state.
Give with one hand, take with the other.
Yeah,
So is that? I mean, okay. So is that 200,000 every year?
Yes.
That's
that's our
is it
normal,
indexed or is it just anyway?
It's increased by the number of valuations they do. So essentially, it's related to property growth with the increase of that.
Simply amazing. Probably not simply the best. And the other one I wanted to ask about was, just bear with me for a moment, which might lead to something perhaps. I've lost it. Sorry, my apologies. Might be some.
Will you find that? Can I go to Councillor?
Yeah, please. Yeah, please do.
I was just going to thank you. It looks really good, and I'm happy to move it when obviously everyone's finished asking questions.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll get a seconder then, and then we'll continue with the questions. Councillor Wagner's happy to
Oh, yeah,
second.
no, I've got it.
Back to you, Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, no, it was on page 42, which was the Australian Electoral Commission invoice for local government election expenses. So we pay that in, we pay it in July and we accrue it back to June.
Yep.
So just how much was it again, if you don't mind reminding me?
It was in around 370,000.
And we pay the
Yep.
AEC, we don't pay the QEC, even though...
ECQ, yeah, that's top.
ECQ.
Yeah. It's Electoral Commission Queensland we pay.
We pay the AEC, but the actual
We
name
pay the AEC, but the invoice is to the ECQ.
Yeah, the election expenses is through ECQ.
Yeah, okay. No, that's all right, because I remember they wanting feedback on from ECQ, not to AEC. But
They got feedback, don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
Especially for places
but
like
sure there'll be
Bundaberg.
something at a higher level that needs to be determined.
Because those costs were incurred.
How much was it again, can you remind me?
370,000.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thank you. Love these reports. Always well done, thank you. Recurrent expenditure, I'm just wondering, I noticed that the actual is quite a bit under the budget for that, so 236 compared to 266 million. Why is that?
So essentially, so you could prepare your actual to forecast. So the main bit with respect to the difference between budget and forecast was the change, essentially in the recognition of how we were treating our restoration of our roads from the Queensland Reconstruction Authority. So we had originally budgeted 23-24, that is operating expenses. When we've looked at that contract and got that in detail, we made the assessment that that's actually capital. So, which has seen us amend that through the Q1 forecast. So therefore, in your forecast, what we're looking at there is comparison your actual to your forecast. So it's at 236 to 244.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And what about the consultants there? Is, the budget obviously was higher than the forecast, and forecast is
so we
higher
reduced.
than the actual.
So we obviously reduced. Yeah, so we reduced that from during our forecast period, we reduced our consultant spend, and at the moment we're sitting below that. There may be some expenses that get accrued back, but I would suggest that we'll be below that forecast amount.
Right. So they're the things that were no longer required. We saved the money on those consultants. Because those items.
We've either done the work elsewhere or no longer done it, required them. Yes.
I think it's important to note there's a component of that from the Works Delivery Improvement Plan that is in your current financial year, so it's not being saved, it's being the timing of work.
Moved.
It'll be timing of work.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No, I have a mover in Councillor Muscat, second in Councillor Wagner for the officer's recommendation. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mark. We move to our council reports, and I'll throw to Councillor Goodluck to update the boardroom on the visit from Minister Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And yes, I did attend the Boyne Smelter on Thursday on your behalf with Chris Bowen, the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, and also Glenn Butcher, the member for Gladstone and Minister for Amazing Things, Manufacturing and Water, I think it is, yes. But no, look, it was good. It was an announcement by the federal government on their Powering the Regions Fund. It was a $91 million investment across 6 projects. 5.4 million of that were for energy efficiency upgrades at the Boyne smelter. And I think it was going to reduce about 17% of their total gas usage across their 2 bake lines. Which is equivalent to about 1,500 cars off the road, which is pretty cool. We did a tour through the bake lines. It was very interesting actually to see how it is all working there, but it's an important step forward for the smelter on their journey of decarbonisation. And it's great to see that investment in our community. So that was really welcome, and we got to talk to a number of the employees and workers at the smelter and talk all things aluminium. It's a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be too. You look at it and you think aluminium's really light, but it's actually quite heavy. But anyway, it was a great day. Good to see that investment in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. Councillor McClintock might be able to give us an update on what happened at the National General Assembly.
Ooh, absolutely. So we attended the National General Assembly last week, week before. Feels like time's flying. Lots of stuff going on. Attended with Mayor Matt Burnett, our CEO, and executive assistant, and myself. And more than 1,200 local government leaders across Australia for 3 events essentially crammed into the 1 week. It was quite a exceptional moving and shaking of logistics to attend a lot of the bits and pieces that went on even around those 3 things, the 30th National General Assembly, the Regional Forum and the ACLG as well. We had quite a full week, obviously. It was opened by Her Excellency, I can say that, the Honourable Miss Sam Mostyn, AC, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, in her first public address. Was pretty inspiring as she spoke to the importance of kindness and care in leadership, especially when it comes to dealing with community. We were welcomed and thanked by many federal members of Parliament who spoke and attended the NGA, including the Honourable Catherine King, Honourable Christy McBain, Senator the Honourable Bridget McKenzie and the Honourable Darren Chester and Luke Gosling, OAM MP. It was quite a big week. Delegates received a presentation on the new local government financial sustainability research, which highlighted the sustainable federal funding to councils would deliver a $7 billion increase to Australia's GDP. The 2024 National State of Assets report was also launched, outlining the condition of 1/3 of Australia's public infrastructure, which is part of the $643 billion worth of assets that local governments manage. This new research reinforces the urgent need for federal financial assistance grants, as we were just discussing, to local government to be restored to at least 1% of the Commonwealth taxation revenue, which was the conversation of the week, obviously across a number of different forums. Across the 2 days of the NGA, we spoke a lot about trust and about how important it is to build that and to foster that and to manage that as local governments. There was 160 motions submitted by councils that we worked our way through over a couple of days, from the cost of living relief to more affordable housing, local roads, cycleways, footpaths, natural disaster management, closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, just to name a few. So yeah, it was a great week. I think it was about 537 local governments across Australia coming together to have really quality, deep discussions around how our country as a whole can address some of the really pressing issues that our local governments are responsible for dealing with day in, day out. And yeah, I think it was a great privilege. It was a great honour to be there, but also very informative and an opportunity to create some great relationships and gain some good concepts and I guess, information around some of the supporting stuff that goes on at a greater level. So, yeah, thank you for allowing us to attend.
Thank you. Very good. Should record that. I might play that back to some people. I wonder what you're doing in Canberra some of the time.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. It was a lot. I forgot about the regional forum, and I chaired a session of it, so it was very good. The regional forums are always very popular. In fact, it was so popular this year, we had to move it from the upstairs venue into the main venue because there was that many people who wanted to attend. Any further councillor reports? Councillor Goodluck.
Just very quickly, Mr Mayor, as I'm sure all of us did, attend Luminous over the weekend, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to our teams who are still down there at the moment, I think, pulling apart, except for Josh, who's looking after us here as he always does. But just a fantastic night. It's always a massive job, I'm sure, to think of new and innovative things to include in the event. If anyone knows 6-year-olds, like I know 6-year-olds, they're bored the second time they see something the same. So my kids just had an absolutely fantastic time. I think there was, from memory, 13,000 on the first night, 15,000 on the second night, and then the ticketed event on the Sunday, which was 3,500 people, but just a huge number of people that went along to enjoy that event. So shout out to our team, community events team, and everyone there that was involved, because it was another amazing weekend. Thank you.
It was. Councillor Wagner, then Councillor Muscat.
Yeah, stole the words out of my mouth there, Carl. Yeah, echo Khan's sentiments there. So well done, Polly and the team and everyone that was involved in that. Interestingly, I was at Rockhampton at the shopping centre on Sunday, and I heard a lady, and I saw a lady running around, and she's gathering all the troops together, and she was saying, come on, we've got to get to Gladstone to see Luminous.
Excellent.
And I thought, well, look at that. It's still helping with tourism and bringing people to the community. And it's it's a credit to everyone concerned. And it did really it puts Gladstone on the map. And it is something so unusual and brilliant. So yes, thank you, everyone.
Excellent. It's good to hear that the residents from Rocky were coming on the Sunday night when they had to pay. Sorry, Tony. Councillor Muscat.
I just wanted to also mention that we had lots of NAIDOC week events last week. So again, Kylie's team managed to do all of that as well, from the libraries to the art gallery to, and those, the community advisory service. So, and it was great. I mean, not just, and then at the end of the week we had the march, which was really well attended, and a great time actually for everyone, especially with the kids. So we had lots of kids attending from schools. So I guess your team was very busy last week. So thank you.
Thank you. No further councillor reports? No further councillor reports, no urgent business, no notices of motion, no confidential items. Declare the meeting closed at 1:34 p.m. Thank you for your attendance.